Alright, what's up, Dragon Brood? Some of you are stepping into the world of Brothers War looking for what cards you're going to be picking up, and some of you may be buying stuff in paper and don't know what cards are worth buying, and you don't want to spend too much. So I'm going to give you a little crash course on some cards I think are actually really good values right now that aren't going to cost you very much money, and get you some cards you're actually going to play with. Alright, the first card we want to look at is Legion to Ashes. This is coming in right now at about $3. It's a colorless, a black, a white, it's a sorcery, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls, and all tokens that player controls with the same name as that permanent. Now, one of the reasons I like this card, especially at the $3 price, is that we've seen other cards like it, and many of them have peaked up over $5, $6, even $10 at various points in their life, and this actually is good in multiple formats. It's something that could end up making a headway really in Standard, but also possibly in Historic Online. It could even be used in Pioneer. And depending on what decks come out, if tokens end up being a big thing, because we are seeing some situations where soldiers will be producing a lot of tokens, there's also going to be a lot of power stones, like a lot of things like that. This card is going to be very good at removing all of those for just 3 mana. Now, it is a sorcery, so that is a little bit of a restriction on it. However, being able to remove basically anything, and on top of that, all copies of the thing, actually seems very good. Now, let me be specific. It's not all copies, but it's all tokens that player controls to share the same name. However, we have seen several things that are able to copy cards that make token versions of those, so that could be good. But yeah, this is actually an overall really powerful removal card, and for only $3, it's going to be really, really hard for you to go wrong, because I don't see it dropping much lower than that at any point. Alright, I'm going to admit, Fauna Shaman's a little bit cheating here on the list because this is a reprint, and we know that the older versions have been anywhere between $10 and $12 recently. Even the cheap ones, I think, have been like around $9. But this card is actually really good. Now, I do think this reprint happening right now, currently you can pick these up, I think, about $5. It's going to bring the price down to about that level on the old ones as well, so you should be able to find either this version or older versions in that $5 or $6 range, which I think is fine. I don't expect it to drop much lower than that, mostly because this card is going to be very good for a lot of different decks, right? It's good in elf decks, which elves do have just enough that they could be considered playable in Standard, so that might be a thing. However, we know this is good for elf decks in various other formats. It's really good in Commander, even if you're not playing elves. I've personally played this in my Rith deck at various times, so this is actually a good overall card. And again, for $5, I don't see it dropping much lower. It might have a floor of around like $3.75, $4. So, I mean, at worst, you're going to be saving yourself, at best, saving yourself $1 if you wait. So you might as well pick them up, because there is a chance that once we get into the new set come February-ish, people aren't going to be opening so much of the set anymore, and it could push the price back up slowly. We've seen that many times with cards that get reprinted. The price comes down for a bit, then we move on for a set or two, and then you start slowly seeing over the course of that next year, the price start creeping back up as people are still looking for it, but no more coming onto the market. So getting in on one of these right now at $5, I think, is a totally reasonable and fair price. Now, Diabolic Intent is also a reprint, but it has a different life than Fauna Shaman. Like, this has had a real version in Plane Shift, which was forever ago. I believe it also had Invocation, however, that's like $100. And then a Battle Bond version, which not all that many people opened up Battle Bond, but even that version I think is still like $20 or $25. And now we have it in Brothers War, right? This is going right now, I believe my last number I saw was about $12 on this card. I think it can come down just a little bit more, maybe to about $10, but I don't think it's going to drop too much more than that. Like, part of the reason being that this is just a card that's good in a lot of things, right? If you play any type of serious competitive Commander, this is a very good card, like just an extra tutor that black gets. The other thing I would say too is this could be one of those cards that, even though it is reprinted, because it's Standard legal, we could see the price actually stabilize and even go up to about $15 or $18 during its life in Standard. A good example of this is years ago when we reprinted Reflecting Pool, right? Everybody thought Reflecting Pool was going to drop. However, because it was so popular in Standard and a lot of people played it, the price on the Reflecting Pool actually went back up to about $25 during its life in Standard because it showed up in so many decks. Now, we're talking about a land there versus a colored spell, so I don't think that's going to necessarily happen here. But again, $15 to $18 is not unreal for something like Diabolic Intent. It is a rare, so it's not like going to be the easiest card to open, and it's really, really versatile and can be used in a lot of different decks. I mean, cleric decks can use it, token decks can use it, Any of the mono black decks can use it, and we've already seen a lot of those, especially if they just wanted to use that to go find like a Invoke Despair or something, right? Like that's a thing. So there, I can already think of several uses right off the top of my head that this card would be good for. So I don't think the $10, $12 range is really unreal to pick this card up at. All right, Symmetry Matrix. 4 colorless artifact. Whenever a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, draw a card. This is one you're probably not going to see on a lot of people's list. However, this does work very well in a token deck, mostly because this is one of the rare times a card like this got printed and does not say non-token creature. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that like token decks are just going to go ham? You're going to be making multiple tokens a turn? Your token makers basically say pay 1 more, draw a card? Possibly, but the thing is, you can pick these up for like 50 cents. So how bad is this going to hurt you? You go to your local store, scoop up a set of these for like $2. If they go nowhere, you're out $2. Hell, you don't even need 4 of them. Realistically, if you picked up 2 of them, you're probably good. And that's only $1, right? So that's actually a pretty reasonable safe pick. However, if this becomes a card that shows up in pretty much every reasonable, say, soldier deck, token deck, aggro, white or green deck or whatever, then this becomes a real issue that this could end up being one of those $2, $3, $4 uncommons. Now, because it's an uncommon, I think the ceiling is probably somewhere between $4 and $5. I don't think it'll be worth more than that. But you can pick these up right now for 50 cents. I think this is a pretty reasonable buy. Even if it goes nowhere, it's such a low investment that I don't think you're going to go wrong with it. If nothing else, it's going to be a really fun card for commander decks, and that can help keep its value up anyway. Mishra's Command. This is an X and a red for a sorcery. Choose target player, or you choose target player. They discard up to X cards, then draw that many cards for the number of cards they discarded. You can have this spell deal X damage to a creature, or deal X damage to a planeswalker, or a creature gets +X/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. What I like about this card is the versatility of it, right? There's sometimes you might just need to shake up your hand. Maybe you know your opponent's sitting on some things, you want to make them discard. Maybe you just need to get rid of a couple of actually, being able to pay, like, let's say 4 mana, and then be able to deal 3 to a creature and 3 to a planeswalker is actually pretty good for 4 mana overall, right? Like, making X equals 3. That's not terrible. And if you just want to give a creature a bonus, that's actually pretty cool too. Like, you could actually get rid of the thing that would block your creature and give the creature you would attack with a big bonus. So I don't think this card's actually too bad. However, I don't think it's the most powerful card. I don't think it's an auto-include card in a lot of lists. I think it's going to have to find its way. But it's another card right now I've seen being available for under $1. So again, now not much. It's basically $1. It's in like 85 cents to $1. If you only have to spend $1 or $2 to grab these, I wouldn't grab even a playset, but having 2 in your pocket just in case, I don't think this is a bad one to scoop up if you see them around and available, especially on pre-release weekend or during the early part of the set before people really start playing with this card if it's going to make a splash. All right, Harbin, Vanguard Aviator. It's a white and a blue for a 3/2 flying human soldier. Whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures you control get +1 and gain flying until end of turn. This card is really nuts if it ends up working. There's a few things I like about this card. One, it's a legendary thing, right? And we know there's some stuff that cares about legendary creatures currently, and it is only 2 mana, which means you can get that off the top of your library if you're playing something like Joda. It also works well in humans decks, because a lot of humans also just happen to be soldiers. It obviously works in soldier decks, right? So that's a bonus. And then if it lives and you get to attack, I mean, just like everything getting +1 and flying just ends the game. I mean, like, seriously. Now, do we need 4 of these? I don't think so, because it's legendary. But I will say, if the soldier decks ends up being aggressive enough, then you will probably want to be able to draw this as often as you can. However, I think 3 is probably going to be the right number to buy on these. And these are available right now, I've seen out and about, for roughly $1. So again, very low investment to pick these up. Even if this card doesn't stay hot for the entirety of Standard, I do think at least in the early goings for the first month or so, while people are still experimenting and building soldier decks, there is going to be a lot of value to probably opportunity to flip these. Not for a lot. I think the ceiling on these might be around $3 or $4. But right now, when they're only $1, that's an easy run. I'd probably pick up 3 of these and just put them on hold. Simian Simulacrum. This is a 3 colorless 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. It has unearth of 2 colorless green. So at a minimum, if this is the only creature you have, you get to play 3 mana and have a 4/3 creature, which isn't the craziest thing, but it actually is pretty solid in general. Oddly, it's an artifact ape, which is very weird, so I don't know how that works, but I don't think it fits any ape-themed decks. The thing I like about it, though, is it does fit aggressive decks, it fits green decks, it fits various types of just aggro decks that it can fit in, whether that's red or white. So you can get a sizable body. You can put counters on another creature that's already going to be attacking, especially if you have something with, say, like Vigilance or Lifelink, right? That could be a huge advantage. And being able to have it as unearthed out of the graveyard, actually, if it works out, is a thing that, okay, your opponent wiped the board, great. On your turn, you just pay 4 mana and attack for 4, right? That's a thing you can do. So, not sure how I feel about this overall. It is currently going for about $1.25, $1.50. I would say if you can find these for $1 or less, I might consider it. I'm not sure I would pay more than that in the early going, because this is, of all the ones on this list, this might be the one that has the chance to flop the largest, so I wouldn't spend a whole lot on it. But like I said, if you can get a deal for these under $1, then it's at least worth considering, because the upside I think is really high, but it also has a very low floor. Steel Seraph. It's a 6 mana 5/4 flying creature. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains your choice of flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. But it does have the prototype ability that you could pay 1 white, or actually 1 colorless and 2 white for a 3/3 that would still have flying and that ability. This I like a lot, honestly. I think this is way better than any of us have really been thinking about when I've seen a lot of decks talked about. Oddly, the fact that this is an angel also matters, right? This is another very good 3 mana angel that the angel decks could play. And giving something else vigilance or lifelink is very big. Vigilance is huge right now, especially considering how popular something like the Wandering Emperor is. Like, you could literally just protect a creature when attacking, or this creature if you wanted to. Giving something lifelink is also huge. Giving a big thing on the ground, like let's say Adeline, right? That's like a 10/4 or something at that point. Just giving that flying and letting it come over the top could be very powerful. There's a lot of things this card can do, and if you just happen to play it for 6 later, then great. You have this 5/4 flyer that has a cool ability. But even being able to play it early as a 3/3 flyer with that extra ability is actually nothing to turn your nose up at. And for $2, I'm in on this card. I think the ceiling on this card could be fairly high. Again, depends on if the mono white aggro decks and or angel decks really make a push on this card. But I think at $2, I wouldn't expect it to be much lower than that. Maybe around $1.25, $1.50. But yeah, if you pick up 3 of these, you're probably okay. Hajar, Loyal Bodyguard, a red and a green for a 3/3 legendary creature, human soldier. You can sacrifice this. Legendary creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this card. Like, it's already just a decent sized creature, right? If I'm playing, let's say, some type of Gruul aggro, like a 3/3 for 2 is actually pretty strong, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that on its face. And there are enough legends that we can come back and start looking at, hey, do we want to play more legends in this style of deck? And if so, this just gives us a way to protect those other creatures. We also know, again, that those Joda type decks that are built around legends are a thing. This is also really good in something like Historic, where we have the, man, I almost forgot for a second, where we had like the Bard class, right? That's it. That's the card, right? This is actually really good for that, because this is the best thing you can play to, again, make those other legendary creatures indestructible, +1, and it's just, again, a quality sizable body on its own. This is also a card that could make its way in Commander, right? They're already getting to the point that we are playing several legendary creatures in a lot of our Commander decks. If you are playing something that has red and green in it, this is actually a very reasonable inclusion, as it can give a couple of your best cards protection from a large number of board sweepers, obviously not all of them, and could be a finishing blow by giving some of those things +1/+0. So yeah, I'm actually okay with this card overall, and it's not going for a lot either. I've seen it anywhere between $1.50 and $2 in a lot of places. Obviously, you'd like to get it closer to $1.50 because I don't think it goes into a lot of decks. I just think the decks that want it are going to really enjoy it. Now, would I get a lot of them? I think right now I'd probably only get 2 of these and then just make a decision based on which way they go. But if you could pick up a pair of these for $3, I think it'll be all right. And this one I think is very obvious on the list, but we did get more Pain lands in this set. I believe we got 4 more, and they're all worth picking up. I've seen these going anywhere between, I think one of them I've seen as low as 50 cents, and I've seen the highest one I've seen is about 250. So you're not going to have to pay very much for any of these. Like, you could get a full set of the 16 cards and probably not spend more than 30 bucks right now. And that actually seems like a very good deal. You'll probably get away a lot less than that. It's probably going to be closer to like $24. So it's actually really, really good. And these are cards you're obviously going to put into a lot of different decks if you're going to be playing Standard. I will say, if you're not playing Standard, I don't think there's necessarily a ton of value to them, but they're going to be cheaper to get the new ones than it is going to be able to get the old ones that existed. So again, even if you want them for a Commander or whatever, it's probably fine. Obviously, you'll get to play them in Historic, on Arena. You could also play them in Pioneer if that's a thing you want to do, but Pioneer does still have a lot of other lands available, so I'd have to check really, depending on the deck. Probably more in 2-color decks than 3-color decks. You might want these, but, you know, it just depends. But overall, the price of these is so cheap, I can't see them being much lower. Now, the couple of the ones, I believe the blue-black one and one of them were hovering around the $2 mark. Those could actually come down possibly a little bit, but any of the others that are in like the 50-cent, $1 range, that's probably already the floor for these cards, man. Like, you're not going to get them much cheaper than that. And the honest truth is, there's a chance they actually go up to possibly double the value they are now if they are just played as we expect to be in a lot of different Standard decks. So scoop them up now if you find them for $1 or less. That's probably the cheapest you're going to find them. My question to y'all, though, now is, what other deals are out there? Like, are there other quality cards that I just missed that are under like the $5 range that people might really need to consider picking up right now? I think this could be a really fun discussion to do at the beginning of every set, because I don't think we've really talked about what are the like low value pickups. And these aren't necessarily cards that I want to say are speculation cards. I'm talking about cards that actually people might play with, that you want to go get for decks, right? I don't like the idea of telling you, hey, just buy this because at some point in the far future, this could be triple the value, right? I try to actually at least give you a little bit of info and some insight on things that you might be playing with in the near future, being sometime in the next like 3 to 6 months that you might want these actual cards. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what your responses are. Or if you just like this type of video, or you hate it. Either way, let me know. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.